Good morning. Oh, that was so good. That was so good down here. But obviously we need the whole room. Good morning. Good morning. Still can't hear it. I still can't hear it up here. Good morning. Good morning. All right, thank you. Look, we love a bit of pantomime. You know that. Welcome to Learning Technologies 2019. I'm Donald Taylor, I'm your chairman. I'm very excited to be in our new venue. Do you like it? I'm loving the enthusiastic reception, that is brilliant. I've got the normal stuff to get through. I've got to get through a bunch of housekeeping. There's a question I need to ask you, and then I need to introduce our speaker and get off stage so that you can listen to her. Because this is a new venue, there is more housekeeping to get through. So bear with me while I crack through a long list of stuff here. Obviously, you know Maslow's hierarchy. Don Taylor's hierarchy has just 2 layers for a conference: food and internet. Those are the most important things to cover. Internet, you can see here. You've got your Wi-Fi is LT conference and the code LT19. You see the hashtags there as well. Lunch, stay with me. For lunch, we're going to go out the way you came in, down the stairs, down onto the exhibition level, go into the Learning Technologies exhibition, which is huge. But don't worry, we have laid a special grey carpet trail. Follow that, it will take you to lunch. Okay? Of all the years I've spent in the training business, I know that the most important thing is lunch, so please, follow the grey carpet, it will get you to lunch. Take your conference badge, it's only for you guys. It's a lovely big area where you can get a nice hot meal and then go out and visit the exhibition. Okay, let's talk about space. This is a lovely big room. I love it. It will be divided up immediately after the plenary into 4 sections. This is room 4. What room are you? 4. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. Let's get this right. This is room 3. What are you? 3. Oh, come on. What? You're 4. What are you? 4. They know how to do it. What are you? 3. Okay, they're 3, therefore that is 1 and that is 2, okay? When you come in, so at the back, 1 and 2, you'll come in. If you want to come into room track 1 or track 2, you'll come in through those doors there. To come into these rooms here, you are going to need to go round and in through the side doors, okay? Again, apologize for this very lengthy housekeeping. I just want to make sure that everyone can find where they're going. There are lots of people going to be standing around. If you don't know, ask, but the room will be divided up. Track 5, Donald, where is that? Track 5 is on the next level down. So you're going to go down the escalator, and it's directly underneath us here. It's track 5. The teas and coffees are outside here. The teas and coffees are outside on the next level down as well. I can't believe there are people taking photographs of me. That must be the most boring photograph, a guy describing where to get your tea and coffee. But I'm sufficiently vain to say thank you very much. I love it, no problem. Lunchtime today in track 5. We've got Nigel Payne. Nigel, you're doing a great session, thank you. Nigel's doing a great session, crowdsourcing solutions to L&D problems. So, just want to flag that up in case you missed it. We have lunchtime sessions, 1 today, 1 tomorrow. Today is Nigel crowdsourcing some solutions to the problems that you bring with you. Now, inevitably, it's a different space, lunch is in a different place, everything is different. There are lots of change. There will be some changes in the program. That's inevitable. We've got 70 speakers. If there's a change to your particular speaker in your session, that will be reflected by the chairperson, but the session structure and the session content will remain the same. I just want to say one thing. I'm on stage here. I love being here with everybody from the conference, but this is absolutely a team effort. We've got 70 speakers and chair people. We've got a social media, back channel team, a whole bunch of other people. If you're a speaker, if you're a chairperson, if you're on the social media, back channel team, please could you stand up? I just want people to see. Don't be shy. Please stand up. There we go. Okay, give them a round of applause. Yeah, go on. Thank you very much. Okay, you can sit down now. That's your moment of glory. Thank you. One very important thing is I've come on the stage without a clicker, but I'm hoping that will work. Can I have a slide? One thing I am I've always been concerned about, I've been chairing this for 19 years. One thing I've been really concerned about is getting the ideas, the thinking, the reflections from where we are back to the workplace. Oh, we have a great time here. We chat, we drink, we think, we share stuff. And you get back to work, you've got 2 days of email to get through, there's a whole bunch of stuff, somebody's banging on your door. It's very easy to let things slide, and that's just natural. So what I want to do this year is focus on what I call the bridge. In every session, I've asked the chair people to put together a short bit at the end. It could be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, it could be a conversation, a reflection, it could be quite an exercise. But in every session, there'll be a bridge. The bridge is your chance to say, all right, that was a lot of stuff. I'm going to stop for 5 minutes and just think about what does this mean for me in my workplace? And you may be asked to make a commitment, but I'd like you to make a commitment to yourself to say, this is my time to take time for myself and decide how will I use this back at work. That's, I think, my only slide I've got, the bridge. So that's the important bit, but the actually possibly more important bit is at the end of the day today, part of the very important bit of learning and sharing we get from each other is always over our networking drinks. Those will take place outside here and on the next level down, and then at 5:30 we've got towards maturity launch of their research, which is are going to be in room 2, and the launch of the exhibitor and the post-show party at the Fox Pub. The Fox Pub, you go out of here, past the exhibition on your right, out the main door, down the steps, turn right. It is an enormous pub that seats 800 people, so you can't really miss it. Just go out the door and turn right. That's what happens then today. I've got one more bit of housekeeping, then I need to ask you the question, then I need to introduce our keynote speaker. One call to action for you guys, very important for me, is that you give some support to Fosway and their research, looking at digital learning realities. Go to fosway.com, there's a link there which will take you through to the research currently ongoing. This is an interim slide, packed full of value and information. A couple of things here you might be a bit worried about. I feel like a weatherman. A couple of things to be worried about. Do you think your current learning platforms are fit for the modern workforce? Big red block, 50%, no. No, they're not. How effectively does your organization measure the impact of digital learning today? Ooh, effectively, 4%. 4% of people effectively measuring the impact of digital learning. So I would love more input for Fosway. I'd love more data for them to go to work on. So please go to fosway.com, follow the link, and help to build up the information so we can understand more about what we're doing. I've got a question for you. If you've been to an LT conference, you know how this works. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to turn to the person next to you and discuss it. If you have a choice, someone you know, someone you don't know, turn to your new friend and discuss with them this question. The question is this. I'll have 2 minutes on it, then brilliant feedback. The question is this. What is the one thing that we must do this year? You can take that we to mean yourself or the profession as a whole. What's the one thing that we must do this year? Find your friend, talk to them, and give us some brilliant feedback. Go. I love the L&D community. We start talking and we can't stop. It's fantastic. It's my job to pull the express train to a halt. It's not going to happen. Okay, let's get some great feedback. What have we got? What have we got, guys? I'm going to come to this table here. It's a hotbed of intellectual discussion, and I probably need a microphone, and I'll just shout it out. I'll repeat it. What have we got?
Learning into work.
Okay, what must we do in 2019? Bringing learning into work. Bringing learning into work. I like it. Or is it already there? Do we have to find it? I don't know. Just a thought. Any other thoughts? Anybody got a thought to share? What did we have to do this year? Oh, now everyone's embarrassed. Everyone was talking. Nobody wants to talk now. I can see somebody on this table wants to share something. I can tell. Say again? Learning in the flow of work. Very much a buzz phrase at the moment, absolutely. Because after all, we do learn all the time. Let's bring it out. Let's share that tacit knowledge. There's another one here, yes? Linking training to the business, why is that so important now? We have to demonstrate the value. Why? Budgets, yeah. Why? And the answer is always at the end, budgets, yes. But yeah, we do. And why not? After all, who pays the piper calls the tune. One last point. Anybody else? Yes. Something about? I'm coming here for insight. Go on. Something about?
Something about not, we're not the experts. Yes, we have knowledge.
Oh, I like this. We're not the experts.
The organisation, like the point you just made.
Yeah. Where does the expertise lie?
With people, everywhere.
The expertise lies everywhere, in the organisation, in the people. It's not our job to try to become experts. I love that. It's not our job to be experts. It's our job to bring it out, share it, help people learn from each other. I love that. Anybody else got anything they want to share very quickly in that final step onto the stage? No. Don, time to get off the stage. Time to introduce our keynote speaker for the day. Our keynote speaker is someone who's got a tremendous amount of passion for what we do, and she's been in the business. She was a VP at PeopleSoft. She's certainly a learner. She's a professor at a business school in the US. She's certainly been involved in our industry for a long time. She was at Microsoft using Windows 3.0, I think I'm correct in saying. There'll be a lot of puzzled faces out there. Windows 3.0 is the one before the first one that didn't really work properly. So that's how old Microsoft is. That's how much experience that she's got in the industry. She's passionate about what we do. She's not afraid to call out nonsense. She's definitely got a lot to share. I'm delighted to have been able to invite her to share some of her passion with us and really challenge us as to what we should be doing. What's the thing that we must be doing this year in 2019? Please welcome to the stage, Marcia Conner. I'm going to disappear now.
Calling out nonsense. What a great line. Calling out nonsense. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's move along. Before I get started, I would like you all to imagine with me for a moment coming into work, knowing you have a full week ahead of you, and being pulled aside by your manager and being told that everything you've been working on for the last year or so is going to be given to someone else to do. You look at that manager and you say, well, that's interesting. What am I to be doing now? You say, well, in a few minutes, you're going to be meeting with your division vice president, who I should point out is somewhat of an ass. And you will learn about a new project that the organization is going to be working on and that you're going to be responsible for in large part. So let me ask you the question. Are you scared? Are you befuddled? Are you really pissed off? How are you feeling at that moment when everything you believed you would be doing in your work for the next couple of days was going out the window? Let's hear it. How are you feeling? What's in your heart at that moment? Par for the course? The sort of thing that happens all the time? Or not the sort of thing that you ever hope ever happens, right? Well, I have been in that person's shoes, and I was responsible for the development or the building up of a workforce at Microsoft in this case, where we grew the support division of the company from about 40 people to about 4,000 people in less than 9 months. Brand new employees, people who had not been in the organization before, and as a fairly new training manager at the time, I had never faced a situation like that, sitting in a conference room with said vice president, who took the power position, because of course he did, sitting on the table, telling me and my new colleague what we were going to be doing over the next couple of months. We were given the opportunity to spend the weekend figuring out how we were going to do this, pull off this stunt, as it were. And we spent our time at the end thinking, what does it look like in 9 months when we have these additional 4,000 employees? And then working back from that future, figuring it out. Instead of looking at the secondary education style training program that the organization, like almost all organizations, have been using for a very long time, we realized that we had to completely rethink everything that we were doing in the organization. We had to ask the question, how are we going to even find this many people quickly enough? And is it really knowledge that needs to be transferred from us to them? Or is it very likely that they actually know a heck of a lot more than we do to begin with? And it's our opportunity to encourage and help them flourish in their new roles. I need to admit to you that even telling the story is as terrifying to me today as it was all those years ago. When we're faced with new work, new anything in our lives, there is a natural reaction that says, what the? And it's our opportunity to either say we can move forward, we can step to the side, or we can live in that moment and actually pay attention to what we're doing. I want to begin our time today with this beautiful Moroccan door. Because to me, it's any sort of doorway, sort of like the bridge that Don covered before, is an opportunity into something else. And I don't know about you, but times right now, I live in the US, and I watch the news of what's happening in the rest of the world, and I realize that for all of us, these are very difficult times, very anxiety-producing, very disorienting at times. And the idea of actually walking through that door when we really don't know what's on the other side is an opportunity that many of us are choosing not to face. But likewise, I don't know anyone who has not just any idea of what's going on, but realizes that they have to figure it out. So, on that note, Don gave me an interesting challenge, and that is to have a conversation with you this morning about candor, about actually asking those questions that will elicit a different sort of reaction, a different sort of way of being going into the future. Candor. Anybody a little nervous about life right now? A little worried, a little anxious, a little disappointed, a little angry? I'm not asking this for my health. And I guess we could say I'm not necessarily asking this for yours as well. I'm asking it as an open question to reflect on where we are today, and for you to acknowledge that how you are feeling these days, that you are not alone. I promise this is not going to be some sort of self-help session where we're talking about how we're worried about what we're doing. But it has dawned on me in working with many, many groups through many, many different industries that we all share this fear of what's happening. And more importantly, even for those of you who love your jobs every day and jump out of bed and can't wait to go to work that day, if that's down the hall or far away, you're more than a little, what's the word? Disoriented. And what I realized is that everyone I talked to about this, and I admitted that my work and those of the people I work with every day is not exactly working out as we thought it was going to, that none of us were alone. And I realized that the only way that I was going to be able to have that conversation and to be able to help people realize they are not alone is if I asked that question in public, in large venues at that. And so I realized the only way we're going to get through this is to actually be able to be honest, not just with each other, but with ourselves. Now, don't get me wrong. I am not implying for a moment that I think you all are liars. As tempting as that may be, I guess I could say, or that the rest of the sessions at this event are not going to be all about candor. But I am suggesting, and yes, I know I am where I am speaking, that I am going to suggest that probably none of you really have thought about how you're going to get more honest in the coming days and years, and how you're going to be honest with yourself. So let me backtrack just a little bit. And that is to say that an overarching theme of this event and of what I'm going to chat about is going to be about this maybe gloom and doom. My 14-year-old son calls it the impending robot revolution. And asking us the honest question, which is what makes us different? How are we not going to be replaced? And the fundamental question is, what is it that we do differently than others? And one of those questions, if you are buckling down and you are not asking those questions, is something candidly that probably could be replaced. So here's your chance. So I'm going to back up a little bit more and say, you know how did everybody introduce themselves, the people sitting with them? Have you introduced yourself to the people you're sitting with this morning? Yes, many of you are probably sitting with people you know. I would like you to turn just for a moment to the person sitting beside you, and I'm going to ask you to do some hard work early this morning. And that is, I would like you to reintroduce yourself, and I'd like you to do it honestly. Kid you not, when I explained this to several people over the last few days, they said, you do know you're speaking in the United Kingdom. We're not a necessarily forthcoming group of people. And I said, yeah, I realize that, where it's okay. I still think you don't have to tell 3 people, but just turn to the person next to you and do your introduction again, the one you've polished, you've said at conferences that you've been going to for years. I'd like you to now do it with real candor. Tell the person next to you why you're really here. All right. Sounds like the honesty is going well. Did the person sitting next to you say, oh, I have that same sort of concern, or, oh yeah, that's really why I'm here as well, or, oh, I didn't know that about you? Those are the sorts of reactions you had? I was in a post office one day and struck up a conversation with the person sitting next to me about the anxiety that we weren't having about the post office, we were just having in life. And she turned to me and said, oh, I thought I was the only one. And that little bit of human connection is something that I find we don't do very often. We forget that we're really not alone in this one, and that pretty much I haven't met anybody in a few years who doesn't have that underlying anxiety and concern. Prior to this event, Don and I had a conversation about something that I was hoping that we'd be able to pull off in this room, but given that it was a new venue, we realized that it wasn't something that we could actually pull off quite so easily, but also speaks to why we have these statues, sculptures on the slide here. And that is that I was hoping that what we'd be able to do at this point in our time together is that people from the back of the room very slowly be creeping into the room and asking some of you to give up your chairs. Just slowly, tap somebody on the shoulder and say, may I have your chair? And then remove the chair from the room. And then the people in the back would start seeing people just standing, and the people in the front wouldn't realize this was happening until all of a sudden 20% of the people in the room were standing without chairs. Well, you're all sitting. Didn't work. We couldn't actually figure out the logistics in this case, but I fear too soon many of us are going to be feeling this exact same experience in our work, in our lives. I gotta tell you, you've heard a little bit of the history of my work. I've been in the computer revolution, so we can call it, since the early days. My first computer at work was a compact Lunchable. Does anybody remember those? The compact lunch boxes, that was the equivalent of a laptop at the time, and it was about this big. And it was big and clinky and awkward and those sorts of things. And though I have always known we had innovative and interesting computing technology and people were nervous about it up ahead, we have also never had or been able to see the headlights of a change in our world happening and coming at us with this much advanced warning. Thought about it that way before? And so the tenor of one of the things I'm hoping you're taking away from our time together is to realize that this time is precious. That you begin this conference in this fantastic venue with these fascinating people with an opportunity you don't normally have. And that is, with the coming automation, much of that which already exists in the world today, so it's not even something that is going to be sprung upon us, with the task of readying a workforce that may have fundamentally different jobs, different roles, doing different work in the future. And even if you believe your fundamental job is not going to be changing, I have no doubt, and I hope you have no doubt, that the work of the people that you are readying is going to be changing dramatically. And so that means that your work is going to be changing too. And as awkward as it sounds, we're going to be looking back on these days, this day, and remembering them as the good old days. And whenever have we had the chance to be able to do something in those good old days, being aware of it, and be able to make different decisions about our own careers, our own work, that will be able to change that future for ourselves. Have you thought about it that way before? Have you thought about this moment in time and what you are going to do differently? So I've started off by telling you one thing is, be friggin' honest with yourself. I hope you're honest with the people that you work with and say these things bother me. Just even saying, I am disappointed, or I'm excited or nervous or whatever. Start off. But to also be spending time actually asking yourself what you need. Right? I always hear that, well, I could use a better salary. I could use more sleep. But what do you actually need? What sort of work lights you up, excites you, interests you? If we're at this pivotal moment when we don't really know what's coming and how this is all going to play out, that's my moment of honesty with you, is that I have all sorts of theories about how the coming changes are going to affect us, but we don't know for certain how it's going to play out. If that's the case, I should at least be spending a little of my time, you should be spending a little of your time asking the question, what do I need? All right, so let me give you a specific in this one. And that is an amazing piece of research was done about, now actually about 10 years ago, I used to say 6, done by a fellow by the name of Doug Newberg, who studied the most successful people in the world. That's what he's writing his PhD on. What are the characteristics of the most successful people? Is there anything that we can distill down that makes them more successful? And there are plenty of books on similar sorts of subjects, but is there anything that he can really distill down? And in his work, he had a hypothesis. He had an idea of what he thought was going to be some sorts of answers that he was going to find, and that is not what happened. I should back up and say, by success, I often have people getting a little nervous here, and they're thinking, oh, did he study famous people? Did he study bankers? Did he study those who often society identifies as the most successful? And none of those. He went to go interview people that I would say all of us would consider very successful, the Nelson Mandelas of the world, several Olympic athletes. Jackson Brown is actually one of them. And he asked them the question, is there anything that you did early in your career or now on a regular basis that made you as successful as you are? Is there anything that you can pinpoint to identify? And he didn't get that much of an answer from that. But soon enough, in the course of the conversation, he heard the same thing from almost everyone. And it really came as a surprise. I'm going to say it probably comes as a surprise to you as it did to me. And that is what he heard from each and every one of the people he spoke to, was that early in their lives, early in their career, they had some sort of feel, some sort of way that their body felt, their head felt, that felt like nothing else they'd ever done. They felt fully alive. And they, for whatever reason, decided themselves that they were going to spend every day going forward trying to recreate that feeling. I'm not talking about the emotions they felt, though they're very related, but how they felt. Doing more of this and less of that. Being in these sorts of situations and avoiding that guy. But they had a feel. Does that make sense? Do any of you know what your feel is? Perhaps not. Oh, yes. Yes, you have a feel it in your bones. For me, mine's hair on fire. I happen to have this crazy red hair that often goes straight up, and so it works. But I started doing that after I figured out that's what it was. I love putting myself in situations that are a little nutty. I can be somebody I'm not sure what the language equivalent is here. I was trained to be a first responder EMT. So I can sew somebody's arm up. If I'm the first on the scene of an accident, I can actually go in and do the medical work that's required. And I'm not sure I would recommend that to everybody, or else I would recommend that to everybody. But it requires a certain sort of energy. I am often the person that organizations bring in when all hell is broken loose. And not because of necessarily my training or my background or my experience, but because I do well in those situations. A good friend of mine considers her feel lightness. When she puts herself in certain situations, she just feels light. Like she can get through anything, glide through any work. And how that has educated her is by simply helping her, informing her if this is a situation I want to be in or a situation I want to avoid. Is this a person I want to work with or somebody who I consider a threat on some level? So if we're going to be honest, and then we're asking ourselves the question, what is that feel? Is that something you can do? Can you spend some time in the next couple of days of just noticing when you feel fully alive, when you feel vibrant, and able to do things perhaps you hadn't been able to do in other situations, and then actually ask yourself the question, what could I do to feel more like this? I can see the looks on some of your faces. You're like, what the heck is she talking about? That's okay. Because I know, at least I believe, that the next couple of days when you're like, oh, this feels great, you're like, oh, that's what she's talking about. Think of that feel as informing you of when you are on the right path. And if you are not going to dedicate the rest of your life, your career, your job that you're pretty happy to have right now because you don't know how long it's going to last, to do a whole bunch of things, but definitely avoid feeling alive and just sort of muddling through and getting through and dealing with whatever it is, at least acknowledge, recognize that if the robot revolution is coming our way, this is one of those things that's going to set you apart. It's going to help you identify the things that are good and that at least can help you move forward when we look back on these as the good old days. I believe you can do that. So the third piece of this, oh, actually, let me move ahead. Is to ask yourself the question, what is it that I'm capable of that I enjoy doing? Actually, forget that one. Forget the stuff you enjoy. Let's even set that aside. Let's ask the question, what are you uniquely capable of that no one else is? I mean, obviously, that's the unique part of the sentence, right? But what is it that you're good at that you can do that you're just better than the other people on doing that thing? You know what it is? I have a couple people like, yeah, I got that thing. I don't do it in public. I've actually, over the years, had a lot of people telling me things that I really didn't want to know when I asked this question. Good for you. I'm not going to have any way to help you get paid for that. But have you asked the question, what is it that I could not be replaced of doing, if you're lucky enough to be doing that in your job? But what is unique to you? If not just in your job or in your work or in your family or in your community, but what are you uniquely good at and qualified for? I put this in here because when it comes to actually speaking with groups of educators, be it academic or focus on business world or organizations, I'll admit, not only was I there for some of the early days of the tech industry, I remember being told that all training was going to go away because of the VCR. Some of you probably remember that too. Then a couple years later, it was going to be the CD-ROM, right? And yet here we are. And so for those of you who are thinking, all this automation and technology that's coming up ahead, we've been there before. We've seen this all play out. We know this is not going to happen. And I've also sat in the meetings in some of the organizations that have been working on the AI and the technology for a good number of years. And I'm going to tell you, for those of you who are really working towards becoming strategists and advisors and consultants in your organization, that the predictive analytics in the world today do it way better than you do. Today. So that's probably not the best career decision you have, of focusing on becoming advisors and consultants and strategists. Being human, being enthusiastic, being good at encouraging people to do what they need to do. Robots are horrible at that. The automation is very unlikely to be able to help that out. But for those of you who are thinking this doesn't apply to me, I'm not going to be somebody affected, you got some work to do there. Be honest. Find your feel. Figure out your superpower. I believe you have one, come up to me afterwards or ask as Don and I are doing Q&A in a few moments for some help on figuring out what it is or if you can actually sell that. And then spend, if not a lot of time, at least a little reflective time when you simply ask yourself the question, what is it time for? What will I regret not having done, worked on in myself, thought about with my organization? What question, if I don't ask, in the future when I look back on today? A friend of mine refers to this question as, what can't I not do? That's a tough one. But what is it that I have to do? What is it that I must do? And do it. And get some encouragement. Talk to the people around you. They're in this together with you. But take the time now to be able to create at least the portion of your future that you have, candidly, any say in. So with those words, with that frame, we're going to spend the rest of our time here talking specifically about the parts of our industry, parts of our world, where the rubber meets the road, as it said, about how this plays out. And I encourage you to be not just thinking about this in the standard sort of ways, but of really digging deep and asking yourself the question, not just what is it time for, but what can I not avoid? What is it that I can't not do? Does that work? You have some hard work ahead of you. I look forward to living in a world where this many people are actually asking these sorts of questions. Come on.
Can I just say quickly, because this is a very unusual keynote for learning technologies. Normally it's futuristic, everything's going to change, or it's here's how the brain works. But this is, here's what you need to think about with your brain and your body working. And there's a very good reason for that. I think we're going through a period of huge change, in L&D in particular. I want us all to get set up and ready for dealing with it. That's why we're asking these questions. Marcia, please, take a chair.
I believe I need to
I've got my iPad, I've got my phone, I'm fully geared up. We've got a microphone ready to run out. So if you want to ask questions from the floor, either via Twitter or via a microphone, please do so. But
he's organized it so I sit here and you sit there.
that's right,
Yeah.
okay, because actually you're more important, so the camera will fall on your face.
Oh gosh,
That's right. And what I would love to do is start off with a question. Marcia, you're one of us. You're an L&D person. You know what it's all about. Why is looking at ourselves now and changing now so important?
Couple of reasons. I'll probably go for the one that I think is the most significant.
Don't be polite, just so we feel.
Oh, don't be polite. Thank you. For those of you who know me well, no, that's not really one of my options.
It's not one of your options. So,
that's fair.
Why is it so important now?
Right now, we not only have this moment, but we have often been thinking about coming automation, coming changes in technology as affecting jobs and work as we think about it today. We think about people replacing the trainer, or the line manager, or the mechanic, or the doctor who does this. We think about them as wholesale jobs, roles, as they are today. Very, very unlikely to happen. If we think about the work as we do it today, and we step back, we realize that the jobs as they're organized today are pretty darn ridiculous. Somebody recently asked me what would happen. Do you know The Office, the TV show? That's obviously came to us from you all. That we can look at that and we can think that is just ridiculous, right? What's happening in the workforce? And we also know that people, despite what organizational leaders sometimes say, that people are the most important. If they've invested a certain amount of money in you, and now they're going to invest, the organization is going to invest 20 times that in your robot equivalent, Can you imagine the office being now all robots? Kind of shakes up the idea. Our jobs are largely ludicrous. They're in big part to support the role itself. More than 50% of the work we do, according to McKinsey and some amazing research coming out that will be published in the early 2020, shows that, say, more than 50% of everybody's work is to just support the role they're in.
When you say that, it's things like meetings, answering email,
email, filling expense reports, but in large part, just doing the maintenance for the role, not necessarily actually doing work. There is no way in the world that's going to be acceptable with our robot overlords.
Okay, so we have a changing world we're working in. We are no longer going to be just focused on looking after the job. That's simply not a good use of time. Time is precious. And I always say to people, it's the most important resource you get. And whenever I'm talking, I will always say to people, please, if this is not the right session for you, you can feel free to leave, because if you can use your time elsewhere better, please do so. It's the most important thing we have. What are the key choices that people in learning and development have to make this year? Can we boil it down to being specific about any things that you've got coming up? 2019, what do we have to be thinking about?
Well, I mentioned it earlier. You need to learn about predictive analytics. If that's not something that you've heard before, that phrase.
Say it again.
Predictive analytics. For the last several years, it's become quite a hot topic in the academic community, looking at how to improve both retention of student rates and graduation rates. It is the notion that a huge amount, so big data, a huge amount of data can be put on very specific concerns and organizations and be able to come up with and be able to identify better outcomes as a result of that. But that's just on the academic side, but everything that we are doing, most organizations, I realize this, that especially for those of you who work in very small and some mid-sized organizations, you probably don't have the amount of data that you're going to have in the future, but that we're going to see that all that data being assessed by augmented in ways that intelligence to be able to identify trends, to be able to see ways that we can improve our work. Right now, there's some amazing AI, and specifically in predictive analytics, that they're able to identify several different diseases that for years have killed people on a very regular basis. They haven't been able to identify what it is that is different between this group and that group, between this individual and that. But by having enough data of enough people, they can see trends and they can see changes that they have never been able to see. So specifically as that relates to L&D, you're talking about how and who should be the people doing the sorts of work you have in your organization. That hasn't ever been able to be really examined before. We've had to fill that in. We've had to smooth out the organizational rough edges when there can be better decisions about hiring, better decisions about meeting the gaps in the workforce and things like that.
I do a survey every year, and I ask people what's important to you this year, and for the first time this year I had learning analytics on there. It actually was leading the poll for a considerable amount of time. The business of analytics, predictive, and I'm not quite sure what learning analytics means for a lot of people.
Good.
Well, no,
I was a little stumped there also.
It's a thing. So. No, it's definitely a thing, but I'm not sure what it means to the people answering the poll. That's what I'm saying. All I know is I think people feel it's clearly crucial that we get a handle on data and we understand what's happening in the world. But hang on a second. My question to you is, yes, analytics is crucial, and we've got great speakers today. We've got Trish all talking about it at the conference. Laurie Nels-Hoffman also talking about some of the ways in which we can look at using data in learning. But are we saying we need to be an expert in data, or is it something else? Is it an expert in asking the right questions, or what?
I think the days of being an expert in anything are over. So becoming an expert in learning analytics or predictive analytics just as silly.
Why is the day of the expert over? And would anybody like to challenge Marcia on that?
Please. Challenge taken.
Why do you think the expert is over? And would you say that as you're about to board the flight back to the US? Are you happy to get on with a non-expert pilot?
Touche. In the past, we have thought of the fundamental art of learning as knowledge acquisition. And the more we know, the more valuable we are to our organizations, the people around us. A pilot's work is largely muscle memory at this point. That's really what's going to separate out. I'm a trained EMT or doing CPR. Those are things that, at the point, it's automaticity. It's the actual ability to be able to produce results that have been internalized that make them different. It's not the amount that we study or the amount that we pour in, as the old phrase used to be. And so the fact that we can now have that information at our fingertips, literally in our fingertips, or with virtual reality gloves, the ability to be able to augment ourselves with intelligence is something that we, in at least of our age, too many assumptions, is really unheard of. We haven't seen before. And so I'm not suggesting that if you're an expert in something that there is not value in that today, and there aren't going to be some people who have better working knowledge or be able to have that muscle memory that they didn't have in the past. But I'm saying largely that our work is executing, is actually being able to take action. It's be able to make different sorts of decisions, be able to act on what it is that is known, if we know it, or it's available to be pulled up in a moment's notice. That is really going to be a big, big difference between the workforce of our children and those of us today.
The ability to act and to make decisions.
Be able to act and make decisions, be able to see holes.
Yep.
Don and I had a somewhat odd conversation yesterday, I will say, of talking about the word ideating. And the notion that one of the big themes that we keep seeing in our work of being a need for the future is, say, of being somebody who can take action. I need to come up with a better word than an executor, because it just has some really horrible connotations.
Yeah, so we need to be able to take action, and we need to be able to spot difference. I've got a question here from Lauren. It says, what one piece of advice, it's sort of pick up on this theme, would you give an L&D professional to have the most impact in today's changing world? So what do we need to do to make a difference, to have an impact?
I will answer that, Lauren, with going back to this predictive analytics, because I'm not suggesting you become an expert in predictive analytics, but you learn what it is. You start thinking about what data you can start collecting, or have your organization start collecting, or discover it's already been collecting and you just have never thought about accessing it, or how that's going to actually be used. And to start thinking about some of those tools and different ways of approaching the future. Then the largest piece of advice that this is going to come across as quite awkward, actually. I realize I just fell right into that one. The advice I'm going to give is to stop giving advice. As the words are coming out of my mouth, like this isn't coming out very well.
So you're not going to take your own advice?
No, well, yeah, I'm going to stop right there and stop doing this sort of thing.
So we should stop giving advice? Okay, that's a stopping thing. Let's put that to one side for the moment. What should we be doing? So we're not going to do that. What should we do with the time that we would have spent giving advice?
We should be encouraging people. Sounds crazy. But can you imagine if your department became the place where people came to for encouragement in their work?
Encouragement for?
Encouragement for whatever it is they're supposed to be doing.
But isn't that the manager's job?
Oh, come on.
Well, whenever I've worked anywhere, it's my manager's job to get me to work.
Isn't that hilarious?
Well, what else do managers do? Because in an era of
that's a good one. Well, what is it that managers do,
in
right?
an era of highly connected information, they're no longer the channel for information, because they don't have to create the reports. That can be done anyway. Surely their job is to provide the motivation, not provide, but stimulate the motivation of people.
And how's that working out?
Well, I'm not saying managers are good at it, but I do believe that's a key role of what managers do.
Okay, I think you painted on a great smile as you said that, like, I will figure out a way to say this with a smile on my face. There isn't, a manager's department. We can't just, stop by that group and ask for encouragement. I would find that my experience is that most people in the workplace, I would say I've surely taught enough classes in my life that if we, instead of believing that we are here to pour knowledge in, to be able to share information, tell them, or pull it out from them when we're at our best selves, but we actually listen to what's really going on, what the issues are, and to help them figure out how to do whatever they're doing better.
Right.
We're doing something that no robot's going to be able to do.
I totally agree. That's a slightly different answer. Encouraging people versus helping them find out how to do it better.
I think that's the line. If you think about this as the career counselor for your company, I think you have a pretty short job ahead of you. I don't think anybody's going to be real enthused about that.
Okay. I'm sort of, sorry, Marcia, I'm just sort of scanning my Twitter handle here for any more questions that might be coming through. There is a microphone wandering the floor. Bill, do you want to just stand in the crossroads there, just in case everyone wants to flag you down? So I never feel that we should restrict question asking to anybody who's got Twitter or indeed to technology.
So in the meantime, let's dig into this just a little bit more about this encouragement. So I'm saying that the qualities of that are listening to what people need. And sometimes it is saying, wow, you're right, I know nothing about what it is you do. But it sounds great. Or I know the organization well and know that's never going to fly. But be able to provide that buffer, that voice of reason, that person who is helping you do better as you go forward, but because you are in a unique position to do that. I think that is something that is not happening in most any organization today. I think that most managers are really trying to figure out how to move the deck chairs in large part. They're figuring out how to make work go in a more systematic way. And I think that is going to be replaced. I think we're going to see, in the US at least, that there is a statistic that every year more than $3 trillion are wasted as a result of bureaucracy. And so if we acknowledge that that is the sort of work that is going to be done far more efficiently by having systems in place that can actually figure out and make more efficient how work is done, then it fundamentally changes what most people do most all of their days. And if you think you're the only one who does it, you're not alone. And if you think you don't do much of it, I'm going to encourage you to revisit that.
I would say, if I can make a suggestion, that one of the things we should stop doing in L&D to give ourselves more time is creating courses. I'm not saying they are not sometimes extremely important, but I think a lot of the time we're creating materials which are either already available, are already available in some way. Can you just give me your reaction to that? Because I'm saying this to a lot of people. Okay, you say yes enthusiastically. Do you want to just give us some more, just the fist pumps?
Very excited of developing less classes. There are always going to be new changes in the rules and regulations of our environment, of the technology that is coming out, or that we have to figure out how it works. I don't mean to imply that there is not going to be things that don't exist today. Yep. And there isn't going to be a need for somebody to look at that and figure out how that's going to be taken in or managed or dealt with by people. So let me get that off the table and say that exists. But for anything that is just done badly, I mean, how many times are we developing courses because we just don't like what's out there? It's not done well. It's not how I would have done it. It's not how my people actually learn things. It doesn't fit into the time available right now. That we come up with an incredibly long list of reasons we can't use the somewhat mediocre stuff that's available. Right? I mean, that's we're going to be honest. The question becomes, what are we going to do to mitigate that? What can we do to be able to help people actually use their brains and take mediocre material and be able to internalize it and figure out how to do it better? Yeah. Wow. If we're looking at that large of a percentage of our work being done to just figure things out, And we can start just helping people have the confidence that, look, here's a page of all the errors or things that don't work, and we could spend all this time of redoing the whole thing for you, but look, it's just not worth your time, it's not worth my time.
It's often said that the best material could be simply a black and white PDF. What matters is the urgency and the motivation and the drive of the person who wants to learn. And that's what's going to make the difference to whether how fast and how effectively it's used.
Sure.
We're coming towards the end of our time together, Marcia. I haven't prepped you for this, but I need to ask you to give us, you've said, during the course of this 2 days, really think about and notice when you're enthusiastic about things, when you feel you're doing a good job.
Alive.
What's that feeling like? And I know what it feels like for me. So for me, it's the feeling of, strangely, it's the feeling of, you know the kids' game hopscotch? When you're jumping, I'm not going to do it on stage, for goodness sake. You jump on 2 feet, 1 foot, 2 feet, 1 foot, and so on. It's actually based on a Roman army training game that they used to do in their full armor to make sure they were agile. And you see American footballers doing this, so skipping very neatly. When I'm doing stuff well, that's what I feel like. I feel I'm skipping. It's a horrible image, me skipping neatly and precisely between things, and that's my feel. Oh yes, and
Hopscotch.
And hopscotch, and it sort of works for me. That's my feel. So we've encouraged everyone to go out next 2 days, really notice, hey, that worked, that jived with me. I felt right at that moment. How can I capture that in a feeling? So my question to you is, and I think it's a really important point, because then there is something that comes from it. So there's 2 things. Firstly, how do you capture that feeling? It's like taking a picture of a feeling. How do you actually capture it? Is it just enough to be conscious that it happened?
Noticing it.
Okay.
And then ask yourself the question, can I reproduce this? What's the situation? What are the times that this happens? And is it just complete circumstances? Oh, I have to be at a large conference, or I have to be talking with this person who lives so far away, I don't talk to them very often. And just ask those questions. Is there somebody else in my life that could be this conversation? Or is there another venue that this would happen? And then start playing with it. Start actually doing the analysis yourself to start backing off and asking those hard questions. If we start off with the assumption we can't reproduce this, because I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, that was just something that happened.
So let's assume, okay, I picture it, yeah, that was that thing Marcia was talking about. The next stage for me is, how do I then put that to work? That's my thing. How do I put that to work? When can I make that valuable for me and for other people? So for me, I get that feeling when I'm connecting people together. I get 2 people together and I'm getting it's like being a host at a party and people are getting value out of it. I get that feeling. And I think it's valuable for them.
Yeah.
But so I could use that in other ways. How would you recommend people think about reproduce, or the circumstances where that can be valuable elsewhere? Is it just reflecting on it? What should they do?
So somebody offers you a new role, working from home, using the grand powers of social learning to be able to connect with other people. And your first reaction is, oh, that sounds great, and maybe it provides me these opportunities, but wow, there's no hopscotch going on there. You start using it by making different choices of saying no. On a day in and day out basis, I'm going to start feeling less alive. I'm going to start feeling less useful. So the question is not, I find people, I guess I should probably say, very rarely, who in that feel say, this is the job or the work I need to be doing now.
Right, so there's no natural link.
There's not necessarily to that one-to-one relationship, but these are qualities or things that can be done at the service of the work that you are trying to do.
Right.
And so that's when it becomes more aligned and that you become better at it. And people want to be around you. They want to do work with you. They want to spend time because they can see that there's something about what you're doing with them that is encouraging.
Yes, and it becomes a way to make decisions about how you spend that most precious commodity of time. We can make more money, we can't make more time. Once it's spent, it's spent. So let's make sure we use it well.
Yeah, somebody recently pointed out to me that the people who are often considered the most successful in our organizations are those who have kept their heads down who have done the work they've been asked to do, haven't really made any waves in the organization, keep plodding ahead day in and day out, show up, do the work. And that's what's led them to be managers, to encourage other people to do radical things. I mean, it seems, pretty funny if you think about it in that sort of way. But those are the roles that will be hands down the first to be done away with.
In the robot revolution.
In the robot revolution. Those are the work of people who are simply doing the work and not bringing their passions, their excitement, their energy to that work, are not people that really are going to help change the world in any sort of meaningful way.
We've reached the end of our time.
Yep.
We've had hair on fire. We've had robot revolutions. We've had deep emotional stuff going on.
Yeah.
We need to walk out to our tea and coffee on a high note. Right. No pressure. What are you going to say to get everybody out, pumping the ceiling and ready to take on the next 2 days and the rest of 2019?
Oh, damn.
Is the future really that bleak?
Is it that bleak? Is that what you said? Is it that big?
Bleak.
Is it really that bleak? I am really the wrong person to ask that question.
Well, may I answer in that case? So
you may. I think about how I'd close and send them off to tea, but yes, go,
so
please.
my view is that we're going through a period of great change. With that, of course, comes threat, but with it also comes opportunity. And if any part of an organization is equipped to help it flourish in a changing world, it's L&D. If any people are equipped to change themselves better, surely it should be us to go out and take best advantage of this. There's huge opportunity out there, particularly through analytics and other things as well, for us to make a huge difference in our workplaces and enjoy it. I can't imagine the people in this space are not going to take that opportunity.
All right, so I walked you through this example of removing some of the chairs. And I think we are going to have some of the time that we're going to look back on thinking about those chairs. And one piece of that I think is so perfectly aligned with what you just said is that it's very easy to imagine, it's very easy to obsess over the people who get to keep their chairs. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to think about how we too are going to use the skills that we have and the knowledge that we have acquired and the stature that we have developed over time to be able to do more of that. And I'm going to leave you with the words to say that those who aren't going to have the chairs are the lucky ones. They're the people who really get to choose the table that they want to sit at. They're the ones who really get to make some choices for the first times, possibly in their careers and their lives, using what they know and how they work and how they feel and those honest resources that they have to be able to make a difference. And instead of viewing this as I have to hold tighter to the past, it's an opportunity to say, this is our moment. This really is our time to be able to use that perspective in new and incredibly powerful ways to make a difference for our future.
Well, there we go. That's it. This is our moment. Brilliant. Guys, we're going to take a 45-minute break now, which enables them to split the room into 4, teas and coffees, visit the exhibition. Look forward to seeing you in the split-out rooms. Can I just say a big thank you to Marcia Conner for making us think and feel.